Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today is January 26th, and the Astros are signing Josh Hader to a huge deal. We've got lots to talk about. Let's do it. Hello, everybody. My name is Steven. This is the middle of the order. How are we doing today? It's been a week. Been a long week, actually, because we've got a lot to talk about today. We've got a lot of signings. The 2024 class of the Hall of Fame was announced as well. We've got a lot to do. We're officially less than a month away from baseball, with February 22nd being that first day for some spring training baseball. Very exciting stuff here. And like I said, we've got a full jam-packed episode here to go over. So let's not waste any time here and get things started with definitely the biggest news of the week, which would be that Josh Hader is signing a 5-year deal worth $95 million with the Astros. And I find this move very interesting for a few reasons here. And we're going to talk about things really quickly. But first and foremost, Josh Hader's been one of, if not the best relief pitcher, closing pitcher as well, for the last couple of years now, with multiple teams. Obviously, he did get traded from the Brewers to the Padres last year. I feel like a lot longer than that, but yes, the Brewers obviously brought him up, raised him, where he had a great time there with the Brewers up until the ending, where kind of was his only slump in his major league career. But in his 7 years in the big leagues, he's gone to 5 All-Star games. And in 2018, he finished 7th in Cy Young voting, which is rare for relief pitchers to do. And to be a lefty as well. Elite left-handed relief pitchers like Hader do not come around often. And to be honest, I was expecting more money. And that's kind of my first issue, I guess, with this contract. Last year, Edwin Diaz received a similar contract, 5 years, $102 million with the Mets. Now, obviously, I know the Mets were big spenders during the offseason regardless, but to compare Edwin Diaz and Josh Hader, you get fairly similar numbers, but it does kind of favor Hader. If you go off of WAR alone, looking at the 7 seasons that Hader's been in the league, and then the 7 seasons that Edwin Diaz has been in the league. Edwin Diaz debuted in 2016, and obviously didn't play last year, so from 2016 to 2022, and then Hader debuted in 2017, and of course to 2023. Looking at those 7 years for both players, Hader has more accumulated WAR at 11.7 to Diaz's 10.3. Has a better win-loss record. Edwin Diaz does have quite the amount of saves over Hader, about 50 more. But K percentage goes Hader's way. ERA goes Hader's way. Hader with a 2.5 ERA in his career to Edwin Diaz's 2.93. Inning pitches, it goes to Diaz slightly with 11 extra. Strikeouts go to Diaz slightly with 9 extra strikeouts than Hader. So like I said, very similar numbers. And then when you get to the bottom there, championships as well. All-Stars, Hader with 5 All-Stars. Edwin Diaz only been an All-Star twice. When you look at Edwin Diaz's numbers, it's very mediocre, I would say. They're very good numbers, especially in 2018 and 2022. Now, let me go on the record here and say that I'm not trying to bash Edwin Diaz here, but I don't understand how, these 2 years that Edwin Diaz pitched, in 2018 with Seattle, which was the last year he played before being traded to the Mets, and of course 2022 with the Mets, where he had an unbelievable year. Let me tell you, last 2 years ago, Edwin Diaz in 2022, one of, if not the best pitchers that year, a 1.31 ERA. He was phenomenal. That 2018 with the Mariners, 57 saves with a 1.96 ERA. He was great. Those were the 2 seasons he was All-Stars. Those 2 seasons alone have been better than any season Hader's produced. But after that, you have a lot of not great seasons. The first year he was with the Mets in 2019, his ERA 5.59. In 2021 with the Mets, a 3.45 ERA. Hader, last year, in 2023, he was an All-Star. His ERA 1.28. I mean, it doesn't take much to find a bad season, because 2022 wasn't a great season for Hader, especially because, like I said, that was his biggest slump period of all time. But outside of that, I mean, 2018 a 2.43, 2019 a 2.62, 2021 a 1.23. Hader has been consistently a better relief pitcher than Edwin Diaz in my mind. So for him to kind of receive that money, I would pay Hader more. Obviously, like I said, the Mets aren't the big spenders, or Mets are big spenders. Astros, of course, have money to spend, but probably didn't want to touch into that range. Other teams weren't coming close, such as the Rangers, which, by the way, huge miss out on the Rangers. We'll touch upon them shortly here. But yeah, when we go back to the comparisons, it just in my head favors Hader over Diaz. The only reason Edwin Diaz has 50 more saves over Josh Hader, obviously, like I said, that 2018 where he had 57 saves was a big one. But even in that same year, 2018 for Hader, he was split in closing time with everybody in that Brewers staff. Hader accumulated 12 saves that year, while Jeremy Jeffers had 15. Corey Knebel were still there with 16. So, I mean, if Hader was the all-time closer, Jeffers and Knebel, those 30 saves would have gone to Hader. It'd be much closer, but I digress. So that's my first problem that I have with this signing, or well, not problem, but just interesting fact, because yeah, it's only $7 million, but I think Hader's worth an extra $8 million to have, that better, money odds over Diaz. But now my other thing is the Astros have a closer, or at least did. Ryan Pressley has been phenomenal since joining the Astros. Of course, he had his upbringing, back in 2013 with the Twins. Spent his first couple of years there before getting traded to Houston in 2018. And since then, he has flourished. His 2 All-Star appearances in 2019 and 2021, both with the Astros there. He's pitched with them in 6 seasons to a 2.67 ERA, where he's picked up over 100 saves with the club, and that is about to change. The last 2 years, 2023, he had 31 saves and 33 in 2022. Of course, last year wasn't his best season, and he is getting up there in age. He'll be entering his age 35 season this year, and his ERA was 3.58. You have to go a long way back to 2017, which was his last full season with the Twins, to get an even higher ERA of that 4.7 that year. So yes, he is getting up there in age, and obviously, to continue the Astros dynasty, or at least to, alter it in a way, the move makes sense for the Astros. But I just feel bad for Ryan Pressley, because this is probably one of my favorite relief pitchers or closing pitchers in the game the last couple of years. I like the way he pitches. His sweeping curve is a great pitch, and this year he's essentially going to be reduced to the 8th inning setup guy, which I think he'll handle greatly. But for me, he's always been a closer in that mind since he's joined the Astros. And it's going to be a weird transition for him, because obviously Hader is going to be the closing pitcher and the guy in the 9th, because you're not going to pay him nearly $100 million to not be that guy. I looked at Ryan Presley's contract. This year he's making $14 million with the Astros, and then next year in 2025 there's a mutual option for another $14 million. Why the Astros probably would accept it, depending on their needs. I definitely think Ryan Pressley will decline this option and try to see a closing pitcher job somewhere else. So this could be most likely the last season Ryan Pressley has with the Astros. But of course, that is all TBD at the end of the season. What we do know is that Ryan Pressley will most likely be the 8th inning to Josh Hader's 9th inning. But outside of that, outside the feelings and the money and the, Hader this and Ryan Pressley that, in terms of the Astros and their team, it's a great move for them. That bullpen gets a heck of a lot better. Brian Abreu gets to be the 7th inning guy then, if you want to look at it that way. The Astros were talking about kind of that rebranding that they need to be doing now. This is a great start to that, but they need money for the other guys. Altuve and Bregman are both coming off the books next year. Those two guys you want to keep around, especially Bregman. Of course, Altuve, a team-friendly guy. He's probably going to stay with the Astros in my mind. But Bregman's definitely a guy who some teams would love a third baseman like him. So they definitely need to keep some money in the books, but I think getting Hader, especially when the other team that was really kind of pursuing him was your rival in the Texas Rangers, it's really great for the Astros to make this signing for sure. And speaking now of said Texas Rangers who missed out on this opportunity to get Josh Hader, they go out, they pivot, and they get what they think is the next best thing. Is it really, though? It is David Robertson. They signed him to a 1-year deal somewhere in the 11 to 12 million range. They haven't actually confirmed that exact amount of money. And if the name David Robertson sounds familiar to you, that's because he's been around for a long time. Probably one of the oldest guys in the league. Definitely off of tenure alone, because he debuted way back in 2008 with the New York Yankees. Is a World Series winner with said Yankees in 2009. And in that giant career that he's had, he's only made it to the All-Star once in 2011 with the Yankees. He was 11th in Cy Young voting and 22nd in MVP voting. Even rare for a relief pitcher to get that stuff. But he has bounced around from team to team. He's played with the White Sox, the Phillies, the Rays, the Cubs, the Mets, and the Marlins last year specifically as well. And in those 15 years, he's been a good pitcher, a 2.9 ERA throughout all of those years. But of course, as he ages, the numbers have gotten steadily worse and worse. Obviously, he's dealt with stuff and injuries over the time of his career as well. Last year in total, he pitched to a 3.03 ERA, a 2.05 with the Mets, but then when he was traded to Miami, he was just not as good, pitched to a 5.06 ERA. He's had plenty of ups and downs in his career, but he is, by definition, a very good, relief pitcher. Never in my mind been that top dog closer, and the same thing kind of went with the Yankees. The only year he was kind of the closing pitcher with New York was in 2014, his last year with the Yankees for a little bit, where he got 39 saves. But yeah, 34 with the White Sox in 15 and then 37 with them in 16. He's more of been that 7th inning, 8th inning guy. So a very good relief pitcher. Is it the best thing with his age up there? I mean, it's going to be his age 39 season with Texas. That one is where I kind of scratch my head a little bit. Obviously, it didn't matter that Texas had a very questionable bullpen because they still did win the World Series. But it's good to see them making the moves to fix that bullpen situation that was such a problem for them this year. They've gone out, they've gotten Kirby Yates, they now have David Robertson, they signed Diego Castillo to a minor league deal, so maybe he can help them as well. In terms of those moves, I've liked it for Texas, but of course, obviously, the big piece that would have cemented them as a favorites, entering 2024 would have been Josh Hader. It is kind of disappointing if you're a Texas fan that the Astros get Hader and not you guys. Obviously, I think it shows good initiative from the front office to pivot as quickly as they did and to get someone, as quickly as they did. But it just kind of goes to show you that it's like, yeah, like I was talking about, the Mets money that they spent on Diaz. Why wasn't that for Hader? I mean, we've seen it from Texas. We saw it with Springer. We saw it with, sorry, not Springer. We saw it with Simeon. We saw it with Seager. Hader would have been another piece of that. We also saw it with DeGrom as well. The Rangers have spent a lot of money over the last couple of years. Why couldn't they go and spend the $100 million for Hader? It's kind of could be a question mark. And depending on how the Ranger season goes this year, we could be talking about this, towards the end of the season of like, oh, those Texas Rangers, man, like, we thought they would be good. And again, the problem was that bullpen. If only they had Hader, right? That's just one way that storyline can go for Texas. But overall, hopefully the move works out. Hopefully Robertson still has something left in that tank. Obviously last year, like I said, we saw it at the beginning of the season with the Mets. That David Robertson, 38 years old, still doing it, age 15-year season. But it progressively got worse towards the end, which honestly is not the sign you want for Texas. If you're going to sign a relief pitcher, you want them to be good at the end of the season where you can be dependable for, September baseball, pennant chase baseball, and then playoff baseball. You don't want Dave Robertson to use all of that stuff that he's got left in April and May and then just be unreliable towards the end of the season. There's question marks there if you're Texas, but it's still good to see them at least doing something and at least going to make a move for that bullpen to help out because, yeah, there's still a lot of question marks looming. All right, now let's transition from the AL West to the NL West to talk about, of course, who else? The Dodgers. They're once again going out and making a move. They're signing James Paxton to 1 year, $11 million there. And the first question that everybody asks is, Kershaw, he's done. Kershaw is not a Dodger anymore. I will be shocked if the Dodgers still re-sign Kershaw. But before we get into that, let's give James Paxton his limelight because he has been a great pitcher in his career. Of course, mainly with Seattle, where he spent more than half of his career. His time with New York wasn't great, and his last year with Boston wasn't perfect either. But overall, in his 10 years in the big leagues, he's pitched to a 3.69 ERA, Canadian as well, so you'll have to see that. And he's been a pretty decent pitcher when healthy, and of course, has that no-hitter when he faced the Blue Jays when he was with Seattle a few years ago. You look at the Dodgers now, looking at their depth chart. You look at their starters, Tyler Glasnow, they got in a trade. Yamamoto, they signed to a huge deal. Bobby Miller, their young kid. Walker Buehler, kind of that ace of that staff that's like a young talent that's, not so young anymore. Now you throw in James Paxton in the mix. You also had guys there like Ryan Yarbrough, who was essentially their lefty. And then Emmett Sheehan, who was another one of those young kids. That is not only a great rotation, but a decent amount of depth, not to mention Shohei Ohtani, who isn't in the rotation this year because of his injury, but will be in the rotation next year. So if you sign Kershaw, where does he go? Because obviously Glasnow's a starter. Yamamoto, obviously a starter. Walker Buehler, obviously a starter. Bobby Miller, that's a starter as well. So, Sheehan, Yarbrough, probably bullpen, if not AAA. James Paxton essentially is your 5 starter now. You're not going to move Paxton to the bullpen. If you sign Kershaw, you're not moving him to the bullpen. So, this move for the Dodgers, for Dodger fans, I don't know how they view James Paxton, if they like him or not, but if I was a Dodger fan, this move is bittersweet. I'm happy that we got Paxton, a reliable, left-hander, veteran presence, but I'm upset because, Kershaw essentially is not going to be on the team anymore. What happens to him is he going home? Is he going to Texas? Like, what's Kershaw's deal here? Because, he still had a little bit left in the tank, I want to say. Obviously, had injuries from time to time, especially in the last couple of years. But still, the best pitcher of the decade. That is, like, you can argue between Kershaw, Verlander, and Scherzer. But realistically, from 2010 to 2020, I think it's Kershaw, hands down. I mean, you look at the years he's had, from 2011, 2017, all All-Stars, ERAs, all under 3. Like, he's been very good, and he still has been. 2022, 2023, those were both all-star years for him. 2022, his age 34 season, pitched to a 2.28 ERA. Last year, a 2.46. Yeah, he's only making 24 starts, 22 starts here. He's getting a little bit injury bugged. Kershaw is still a very good pitcher. Any team would be lucky to have this guy grace his presence there. But of course, it's bittersweet because he debuted in 2008. That's a 16-year career that he's had with the Dodgers, that this move with James Paxton officially kind of ends that in like a way that's like, it's technically not over because he hasn't signed anywhere, but where do you put him if he does sign? Are you assuming somebody gets hurt? Do you keep him from depth? Like, it's very finicky there, which is why it's essentially like, yeah, he's being essentially placed in, that thanks for your time with the Dodgers, Like, obviously will go down as one of the best Dodgers ever, but with this move, it kind of seems like, yeah, Kershaw, like, you're done, we're moving on from you, which, as a Dodger fan, is pretty gut-wrenching. It hurts when you have a player like that leave, and like we said, like, that's kind of not where we're going to, but I mean, a lot of that's been happening recently. Brandon Crawford's a free agent right now. He's probably not signing back with the Giants. Joey Votto, he's probably not signing back with the Reds. There's questions that need to be answered with these kind of like, okay, at the end of their career kind of guys, like, let's sign them to one last year, 1, 2, or 3 more years, let them like stay with this team. That doesn't really happen. So it sucks for Kershaw really, because yeah, I mean, your time with the Dodgers essentially up, but they've made their choice. They've gone with Paxton for 11 years. He, I'm assuming, will be the 5 starter there. If I'm wrong about that, Dodger fans, let me know, because that's how I see it, viewing your team. But we'll have to see what the rest of the offseason is saying. But for now, Kershaw, not really going to be a Dodger. And James Paxton gets to join the likes of Yamamoto and Glass now in that elite Dodger rotation. All right, let's try to pick up the pace a little bit here. Let's head to the NL Central to talk about the Pirates and their very good offseason. They go get Aroldis Chapman. We talked about Dave Robertson being in the league for a long time. Aroldis Chapman, just as much. Spent some time with the Yankees, obviously came up with the Reds. He known for his elite fastball and speed. Last couple of years, as he's getting up there with age, has kind of lost it. Not really that closer guy anymore. Is more of that, 8th inning guy. He'll come out in the 9th and do his thing. But the Pirates are signing him to a 1-year, $10.5 million deal there. I assume he's going to be used kind of as the 8th inning guy because they have David Bednar there. On a day where Bednar's pitched the last 3 days in a row and, he's coming to the 9th inning. There's 2 lefties up. Yeah, you can go to Chapman. I expect to see him get a couple of opportunities out there, but I expect him more as that 8th inning guy. I mean, the Pirates, man, what an offseason they've put together with their young kids coming up and these guys now kind of, slowly cementing themselves. The Pirates could be a fun team this year. I mean, they've gone out, they've re-signed McCutcheon, they signed Rowdy Tellez, they've traded for Billy McKinney and Marco Gonzalez. They signed Perez earlier in the offseason as well. So there's definitely been some moves for said Pirates. Obviously not to the likes of like the Reds and the Royals. But the Pirates could be a sneaky fun team this year. And, we'll have to see how the rest of the offseason goes. But the Pirates to get Aroldis Chapman, I think, is really good for them. I think it's going to help them out a lot. I think Chapman, being in that environment will help, some of those guys, some of those young pitchers who are coming up for the Pirates. And hey, worst case scenario, things are going sideways, your season sucks. You trade him at the deadline. I'm sure I'm sure Chapman's numbers won't be awful. And I mean, look how it worked last year. He signed with the Royals, had very good numbers. Royals traded him to the Texas Rangers. He's a World Series champion. That could 100% happen again this year. Pirates, hey, if things are going well, you have a chance at the division, you hold on to the Chapman. Worst case scenario, you guys aren't competing, you trade him. Simple as that. Chapman is still a reliable arm despite last year's, problems in the save spot, in the ninth inning. In the eighth inning, though, with Texas, he was still very solid. Last year in total was a 3.09 ERA. He only made 6 saves in those 58 innings. Gave up some runs here and there. Only 4 home runs, though. So like I said, still limits the home run ball. Still holds guys. Still has that crazy speed on that fastball, despite being 35, now 36 years of age. Chapman's going to find himself really nicely in this Pirates bullpen. Great move from Pittsburgh. Good for Chapman. Like this move a lot. All right, now let's stick with this NL Central and transfer over from the Pirates to the Brewers to talk about Rhys Hoskins signing a 2-year, $34 million deal with the Brewers with an opt-out after this year as well. Very interesting move here, of course. We have to talk about Rhys Hoskins because he didn't play last year, obviously dealing with injury. So he hasn't touched the baseball really, or touched the field, since 2022, of course, and that was the year where his infamous bat spike against Spencer Strider in the postseason when the Phillies beat the Braves. And he is a Philly native. Realistically, he spent his entire small 6-year career with the Phillies, debuting in 2017, where he finished 4th in Cy Young voting. And since then, he's gone on to be a pretty underrated first baseman in my mind. Has never made an All-Star game, kind of just flown under the radar, especially in what has always been a heavy first baseman market. There's always been first basemen who have shined a little bit brighter than he has. Guys like Goldschmidt, Freeman, Olsen, take your pick. There's been elite first basemen. And I think Hoskins goes underrated. Looking at those home runs in 2022, he had 30 home runs, 27 the year prior. RBIs, he gets up there, 79, 71 RBIs. He had 145 hits with the Phillies last year. Those are some things to think about. I think the Brewers got a very nice guy here to kind of man the first base, and he has a decent glove as well. No silver sluggers, no gold gloves, no accolades really for Hoskins, but that has never made him a bad bat. He's been pretty good. Sometimes can have a hard time straying away from the strikeout numbers. He can walk a decent amount. Overall, Hoskins, like I said, is a good first baseman, and I think slightly underrated. Some projections here for him, not the best projections. They have an OPS of 810, but only 13 home runs and 35 RBIs. I think those are very low. I'd keep an eye out for Hoskins. If you do fantasy, if you're a betting man, I think Hoskins comes out and has a really nice year with the Brewers. I think this is a great move for them. And for Hoskins, I think it's going to be a little weird at first, obviously. Like I said, it's always weird when you spend your whole year with a team, your whole career, and then you go to a new environment. You're going from Philly faithful, the proud there, to the Milwaukee Brewers, a little bit more of a calm environment, but still has that passion. They've got guys there, the pitching's elite. So it'll be interesting to see how Hoskins adapts from the Philadelphia, till Milwaukee. But yeah, very much like this move for the Brewers. I think it's good for them to kind of, get their team right, to if they want to stay competitive with teams like the Reds and the Pirates still, slowly crawling up to those, to having a very good team. And of course the Cardinals, the big issue they had last year was their pitching. They fixed that. They're expected to be a good team this year as well. So the Brewers need to stay on track. They go out and get Hoskins. Hopefully it works out for both of them. All right, now taking a look at some of those free agents still left on the market. A big category of top-end players is the DH category, but that did shrink slightly over the past week because a couple of those lefty power bats are off the table. Let's start with the Diamondbacks, who are going out to sign Jock Peterson on a 1-year, $9.5 million deal with a mutual option for 2025. Now, of course, Jock Peterson, I know him for the playoff run he had with Atlanta in 2021 with the Pearls. Believe it or not, he is a 2-time All-Star and a 2-times World Series winner. He's won it with the Dodgers in 2020 and, of course, with the Braves in 2021. So he's been around. His first All-Star appearance came in 2015 with the Dodgers when he also finished 6th in Rookie of the Year voting. And it took him 7 years to get an All-Star appearance again. He had it with the Giants his first year in 2022, signed a 2-year deal with the Giants there, and produced some good numbers in those 2 years, 2022 and 2023. He had 38 home runs, 121 ribbies, an 821 OPS. Jock Peterson, very good. Of course, his issue would lack in, the pitcher he faces. If it's a left-handed pitcher, strikeouts, and lots of them. But if it's a right-handed pitcher, watch out because one hanging breaking ball, and that is going 460 plus feet. The one thing to note about Peterson and what kind of separates him, obviously he gets used in a platoon situations a lot because, he can't really hit left-handed pitchers. If the starter is left-handed, either Peterson's not playing that day or he's batting low in the lineup. But when you look at his strikeout numbers, last year, 89, 2022, 100, 2021, 117, for a, power, kind of guy like he is, DH-wise, usually those strikeout numbers are much higher. When you look at his start of his career, 2015, 2016, 170 strikeouts, 130 strikeouts. He's done a very good job, each year limiting those strikeouts and bringing the walk numbers up. In 2021, his walk numbers was 39. 2022, it was 42. Last year, it was 57. So Jock Peterson, despite now being 32 this year, continues to limit his strikeouts, bring up his walks. His OPS is still good. He just needs to refine some of that power again because he really hasn't had any big power years for home runs wise really since 2019. The start of this decade has been kind of slow for Peterson, but I think with the right team here, it'll be good for him, and hopefully Arizona is that right team for him as he slots himself in kind of into that middle of the lineup with guys like Corbin Carroll and Lourdes Gurriel there. So good for the Diamondbacks. But they're not the only teams to sign a big left-handed bat because the Nationals are signing Joey Gallo to a 1-year, $5 million deal, which is crazy because I remember Gallo for the absolute tear he was with Texas towards the end of the decade. 2-time Gold Glove winner, 2-time All-Star, but that hasn't happened since 2021. Ever since he was traded from Texas to the Yankees, his career has kind of flatlined since, really it's been sad. Those Yankee numbers, those times when he was with the Dodgers, and even last year with the Twins, not the best numbers. Last year was actually his best year since 2021. Gallo's just kind of lost when that spark. When you look at those Texas years, he spent 7 years in them, but still 145 home runs with Texas, and since leaving, so his year with the Yankees, his half a year with the Dodgers, and his year with the Twins, he's only had like 52, 53 home runs. So I definitely think, he needs some of that spark back for Gallo. The Nationals aren't competing next year. We know that for sure. So this is basically one of those moves that they sign. Hopefully Gallo plays really well, has a great year, and then trades him for prospects at the deadline to a contending team. That's the way this works. That's the only thing that makes sense for me with this deal here, because the Nationals have no reason to sign Gallo. He'll be batting fourth as a power bat, try to hit lots of home runs, look good before the All-Star break and before the deadline, trade it for the best prospect they can get. That's how it's going to work. So we'll be talking about that throughout the season of where will Gallo be come the end of the year, because I'd find it hard to believe, unless he's playing really bad, because you're not going to trade a really bad player. If Gallo's having a good year, he is definitely being moved. No way about it. It's crazy because I remember also when he was with Texas, entering free agencies and stuff like that, how people were talking about like, 25 mil up to 30 mil, like this guy's GOAT. And he had great numbers with Texas, 2017 an 869 OPS, 2018 810, 2019 a 986. He was amazing that year. But of course, that was also a year he got hurt, only played in 70 games. But to see him now signing a 5-year deal with the Nationals, it's surreal, really. Baseball moves fast, and if you don't catch up, if you're not playing good, you'll miss your opportunities, you'll miss your chances. So, kind of unfortunate when you think about it for Gallo. Hopefully he has a really strong year with the Nationals and, finds himself on a contending team and can kind of find back that Texas Rangers form that he had back in 2019. It'd be fun if he went back to Texas, actually. If the Nationals trade him to Texas to be the DH there, I think that'd be fun for them. But we'll see. So hopefully it works out for both teams, or for the Nationals and Gallo. All right, now let's head back to the AL West, talk about the Angels, who made a couple of minor moves, and I say minor because one of them is actually a minor league deal. But we'll start with the one that's not. And it's good to see from this guy, because this guy has always been on my radar, but off of it at the same time. Matt Moore is signing a 1-year deal worth $9 million with the Angels. What will he be doing? I don't know. He hasn't started a game in the majors since 2021 with the Phillies. But that doesn't mean he can't, but I also expect the Angels to use him wherever they need fit, whether that be as a starter or out of the bullpen, which, he has done pretty good for the last little bit here. Last year alone, he played with the Angels, he played with the Guardians, he played with Miami, but in total, in 50 games, he had a 2.56 ERA. Very good stuff, all out of the bullpen there for him. And I just say, though, I remember this guy from Tampa Bay. His one All-Star appearance, his 9th in Cy Young voting in 2013. I remember playing MLB The Show 2015 and doing like franchise modes a lot, and obviously picking the Blue Jays. He was always the opening day starter, so like every time I started a franchise, I'd always see Matt Moore game one. It was something about it, man. That's a memory that I have playing with the show as a child growing up. So Matt Moore will always be a name I remember. But to see him have a really good year like he did last year, I feel good for him, because, of course, he had issues. He had injuries and all these things that kind of limited his playing time, kind of derailed his career. He only made 2 starts in 2014, and since then he was never really the same. A 5.43 ERA, 4.08 ERA, 5.52 ERA throughout the years there. And that always really sucked. But obviously I didn't, you forget about him a little bit, but seeing this resurgence he's had now coming out of the bullpen, nearly 10 years later, it's really nice to see. So I'm glad he's doing well. And hopefully this move works out for the Angels. Obviously, no pressure, but you're kind of in there to replace Shohei also. So Matt Moore, we're expecting an all-star appearance out of you. But jokes aside, he's kind of finding that form again. A good lefty, dependable here in the late stages of his career. So hopefully that all goes well for Matt Moore. They've also signed Miguel Sano to a minor league deal, and this is kind of another example of what we were talking about with Gallo. You're not moving fast enough, the league will pass you by. 2021, played 135 games with the Twins, had 30 home runs, the whole Bomba Squad era. 2022, he played 20 games, had 1 home run, had a 3.45 OPS and an 0.83 batting average. And he did not play last year. And he's only 31. People forget. He is young. He debuted at the age of 22 in the year 2015, where he finished third in Cy Young voting. Third in the Rookie of the Year voting. Always hit a lot of home runs. Had 1 All-Star appearance in 2017. And, what's going to happen to him now? Hopefully things work out. Hopefully he finds himself onto the Angels Major League team this year. All the best for Miguel Sano. You kind of forget about him, but man, was he good with the Twins for a long period of time. But yeah, obviously didn't play last year, so we'll see how things go for him. All right, now the last move I want to talk about, it's another minor league deal. Like I said, I haven't been doing all the minor league signings that happened, but for certain players, I think they're deserving a little bit of conversation and time here. Trey Mancini is signing a minor league deal with the Marlins. And you have to wonder, because this is a guy who's a fan favorite. I expect him to hopefully be playing with the Marlins. Of course, got cut from the Cubs last year around the middle point of the season. Is a World Series champion, though, with the Astros in 2022. But, of course, most well-known for his time spent in Baltimore. Kind of like the first player to kind of change Baltimore's, from being fifth in the league to now winning a division last year. It all kind of started from Trey. Was finished third in Rookie of the Year voting in 2017 with Baltimore. Obviously spent his whole time there. Was traded in 2022 from Baltimore to Houston, where he won the World Series. And 2023 he spent with the Cubs. Obviously he also did suffer from cancer, but came back stronger than ever. Won a comeback player of the year in 2021. So, just a fan favorite guy. A lot of people know of him. A lot of people like him. He's had a nice career. And, to see him sign a minor league deal obviously sucks. You wish he was still getting some good money and playing well baseball. But, hopefully it works out for him. Hopefully Miami gives him his opportunity. He has a great year. Whether he gets traded at the deadline or something, who knows. But, he still is a decent bat and can be an all right fielder. So all the best for Trey Mancini there. And the Marlins technically doing something. Good for them. Their first kind of signing that matters. All right, and if you thought we were done, you're wrong, because we have one last bit of news to talk about. The 2024 Hall of Fame class here. It has gone and is come and gone. The voting is in, and we officially know the names of the players who are being elected into the Hall of Fame. And those players are Adrian Beltre, Joe Mauer, and Todd Helton. Todd Helton, this is his 6th year on the ballot, finally getting the call. While Beltre and Mauer, this is their first year. So obviously, congrats to those 3 guys. First mentions. Adrian Beltre, we'll start with him, a 4-time All-Star player, a 5-time Gold Glover, 4-time Silver Slugger, and 2 Platinum Gloves. Obviously started his career with the Dodgers, spent some time with Seattle, and then after that near decade of, mediocre baseball, once he turned 30, he turned it on in 2010, made it to his first All-Star game with Boston in his 1 year there, and then signed that big year with the Texas Rangers. And from there, his career kind of took off. in the late stages, 2011, 12, All-Star years there. Beltre, despite spending majority of his time with teams like the Dodgers and the Seattle Mariners at the start of his career, most of his success, most of his awards, all that stuff comes with Texas in the back end of his career. Has a lot of funny moments, was one of the game's greatest, just characters in baseball. His friendly rivalry with Felix Hernandez of the Seattle Mariners always lives on in my head rent-free. Was always in MVP voting, somehow always finished 7th, Silver Sluggers, Gold Gloves, all that stuff with Texas. He had 2 Gold Gloves with Seattle, and then in 2004, his last year with the Dodgers, finished 2nd in MVP voting, I believe, as well as a Silver Slugger there. Had 48 home runs, the most in his career. Overall, a very good third baseman, one of the best to do it. Collected 93.5 WAR, had over 3,000 hits, 477 home runs. Just a great ball player for sure. Taking a look at Joe Mauer, a catcher that didn't catch a whole lot, had a 15-year career, was a catcher, was a first baseman, was an MVP, was on the cover of MLB The Show, an 8-time All-Star, 3-time Gold Glover, 5-time Silver Slugger, and won the batting title 3 times. He was hitting, if you look at his baseball reference page, it is very good. Of course, most notably 2009, where he was the MVP. He was an All-Star, he was a Gold Glove winner, and a Silver Slugger that year. A 365 batting average, the highest of his career. His OPS 1.031, the highest of his career. 28 home runs, the highest of his career. 96 ribbies, the highest of his career. You know where I'm going with this. 2009, his peak baseball, one of his best years, his best year in the show. Of course, unlike Beltre, a lot of success came early with the Twins. And that's one thing that did separate him, is that he spent his entire 15-year, from 2004 when he debuted all the way to 2018 when he retired. All that time spent was with the Twins. A fan favorite out there, one of the game's greatest catchers of the decades. So congrats to Mauer as well. And the last guy, Todd Helton here. It took him a couple years, but he did do it. A 5-time All-Star, 3-time Gold Glove winner, a batting title to his name, and a 4-time Silver Slugger. But the Colorado Rockies' history being so short, he stands out as a guy who, as a face of that franchise and one of the team's best players ever. And it all started in 1998, where he finished 2nd in Rookie of the Year voting. And how about the years from 2000 to 2004? Those 5 years, he was 5-time All-Stars. He was a Silver Slugger in 4 of those years and a Gold Glove in 3 of them. And he was in the MVP voting in the top 20 for all 5 years. And how about this? All 5 years, his OPS, $1 plus. It was very impressive, to say the least. Spent his time there at first baseman, left-handed. And he was a heck of a bat, let me tell you. 35 home runs, 42 home runs, 49 home runs, one away from 50 in 2001. Was very good, and even towards the late stages of his career, he retired at the age of 39 in 2013. But 2009, he was 13th in MVP voting, had 86 ribbies, only 15 home runs, but he was still having a little bit of success there. A 904 OPS, which is pretty crazy. When you look at his baseball reference page, the lowest OPS he ever had in his career was in 2010 at 728. And then the very next year, he brought it back up to 850. This guy was a pure hitter, one of Colorado's best and brightest. So congrats to all of those 3. And last thing I want to mention here quickly, of course, Gary Sheffield. This was his 10th and final year on the ballot, and unfortunately did not reach the percentage of votes that he needed. And he will be one of those guys who miss out on the Hall of Fame. But I just want to mention his career quickly because what a career it was. A 9-time All-Star, a 1997 World Series title winner, a batting title, a 5-time Silver Slugger. Just a great player when you look at his accolades throughout the years. Plenty of All-Star appearances, plenty of time. Like I said, he debuted in 1988 and played all the way to 2009. He played 22 years in the Major League and had a lot of success, a lot of 30-year home runs, most notably towards the end of the 90s, early 2000s, kind of like Helton. The year 2000, he had 43 home runs, 100 and 9 RBIs. Like I said, his first All-Star was in 92. His last All-Star was in 2005. He did it for a long time. A great bat there. Played right field, played third base, did it all. Teams like the Brewers. He was on the Marlins, the Dodgers, the Yankees for a couple years. He spent some time with a lot of teams and was a good player. So it sucks to see him miss out on the Hall. But regardless, with the unfortunate there, you get 3 players who are more than deserving. So once again, congratulations, Adrian Beltre, Joe Mauer, and Todd Helton. Okay, now that is going to do it for us today. You guys tired of hearing my voice? Because I am tired of talking. Over 50 minutes of baseball news today. Thank you, everybody, so much if you made it this far in the episode. I appreciate you all. If you're new here and you like the format and you like the way we're running the show here, feel free to subscribe. Helps me out a ton. I'm getting geared up and excited for the 2024 season here. I appreciate you all. Thank you very much. And like I said, that's doing it for us today. Most likely we'll be seeing you guys still every Friday for now as I, transition back into school and we transition into some spring training stuff. We got one more month of this, 3 or 4 episodes here before we really hightail it into the new year. Thank you, everybody, so much, and I will see you guys next time.